Guy here. Today I have a conversation with Dr. Jeffrey Thompson. We dive into the topic of healing the body, heart, mind, and spirit through the scientific application of sound. It's a fantastic, deep conversation, and I have no doubt you'll get a heap out of it. If you enjoyed my conversations, please be sure to hit the subscribe button below on YouTube, hit the like button, and leave us a comment. I love hearing from you, and all this engagement helps me continue to get these conversations out there for more people to listen. Anyway, enjoy the show. Jeffrey, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Yeah. Talking to the other side of the world.
You got to love technology. I've
do.
traveled the world a lot over the last 12 months via technology on my podcast, so it's been great.
So some of the ones I do from Asia, I'm talking to somebody and they're like tomorrow.
Yeah, time traveling. Yeah,
Yeah,
and look, I deeply appreciate you coming on, Jeffrey.
that's my pleasure.
I've been jumping into your work, and I'm like, wow, there's so many avenues that we could go down very quickly here, and I'm fascinated to see where the conversation goes. But I always start with the same question for every guest on the show, and it's a very simple one. And that is, if you were at an intimate dinner party right now and you sat next to a stranger and they asked you what you did for a living, what would you say?
Oh, that happens to me all the time. I mean, well, Einstein once said, if you can't explain quantum physics to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it. you know, but well, I mean, the short answer to that is I have a PhD in otherology. Otherology, yeah. So no, I tend to shy away from saying that I, am a sound therapist because too many other things come to mind. Usually, the first thing that comes to mind is Tibetan bowls or something, or maybe toning or chakras or tuning forks or something. And nothing wrong with those, but it's more of I use scientific monitors, EEG, heart rate variability, which I can explain, that allow me to see inside your brain, inside your autonomic nervous system, to see the master control center of your body. And I combine these scientific instruments with high-tech sound generating equipment to influence how my brain works and how my body works for healing and for expanding consciousness, for sort of high-tech meditation. That's the broad stroke. There's once you start to dig into that, though, the fact that that we can hook people up to EEGs. We can see different research institutes around the world who are exploring what does the brain look like when you're in different states of consciousness. And so they hook up these fancy schmancy EEG machines, and now we've got brain mapping computers with three-dimensional displays of rotating your brain around, and you can see where all the brain activity is on different areas of the cortex, and you can see how they're communicating to each other, and you can see what type of brain frequencies are where in unprecedented detail. And what you want to see is, well, what does enlightenment look like? Or what does creativity look like? Or what does the flow state look like? Or what does the brain do when I problem solve or access my true creative juices where I get out of my own way and the best stuff comes through? New, original ideas, lateral, out-of-the-box thinking. What do those things look like? And that's been very well cataloged. What does it look like? Different states of meditation from different cultures. What does that look like? And once we can see what that looks like, and then over here on the other hand, we've got really sophisticated new technologies that can do things that have never been possible before. And one of those is something called brainwave entrainment. which means that we can use various means. You can use light that is pulsing, or sound that is pulsing, or electromagnetic fields that are pulsing at a certain speed. And so the basic idea is if I create a sound pulse that's pulsing at a brainwave speed, my body clocks try to get my brainwaves to time to that, because that's how my body works. My body is always trying to time my body clocks to the external pulses in the world. Why? Because I want to save energy. Rule number one in the body is survive at all costs. Rule number two, get the most work with the least amount of energy expended. Don't waste energy. So in order to do that, I have body clocks, and my body clocks are timing themselves to the world. If I can dance to a drum beat that's already beating, it saves energy to do so. So we can commandeer the system by exposing you to the most dominant pulse in your environment. Let's say a sound pulse. Like I could put sound pulses through your headphones right now, and that would be the most dominant pulse in your environment because it's closer, it's louder, it's more dominant, and your brain waves in a few minutes would change and start to change from wherever you are and slow down to match whatever that was. So I say the earliest use of that would be shamanic drumming practices.
Yeah.
And when you analyze recordings and videos of shamans pounding these drums, I've done extensive work with that in my recording studio. And you can take those recordings, you can time them out. What's the speed of the drum beat? The speed of the drum beat tends to be around 5 hertz. If I, had something to pound on here, like say this is a drum. That's about right. And that's about 5 hertz.
Got it.
5 hertz, 5 cycles per second. That's a theta brainwave. It's where you go in dreaming sleep. So your brainwaves are slowing down as you go to sleep into alpha, and then in theta and down into delta, deep sleep. In theta is where dreaming happens. And so that means that if I start pounding this drum at 5 hertz, your brainwaves will try to time themselves to it. And right now, as we're talking, our brainwaves are rapid in beta, around 15 to 20 hertz. And that electrical activity in your brain will start to slow down and slow down. It'll go into alpha at 13 hertz and keep going. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. It goes into theta. 6 and 5, it matches onto that sound pulse and locks onto it. And once it locks on, if I speed that pulse up or slow it down, your brainwaves will follow. That's called the frequency following response in EEG. And essentially, once that happens, you're hypnotized. When you follow my lead, that is hypnosis. But in the big sense, if I'm awake and I pound this drum at 5 hertz and my brainwaves slow down and I go into this 5 hertz thing and lock on there, I just took you from an awake state into a dream state without going to sleep first. That's a classic definition of a trance. And a trance on EEG is very similar to meditation. It's all the same kind of business. I mean, when somebody hypnotizes you, all they're doing is getting rational mind out of the way and accessing big mind that can do things that I don't think I can do. I can increase my memory. I can access memories from the past that I didn't think I had. I can do superhuman things. I can do sort of psychic things. Anyway, it's interesting. But
no,
once we
absolutely. I was going to ask you, my question to you is with that, to wrap it up for people listening, because you mentioned about the brain and the autonomic nervous system, and you're measuring these.
Yeah.
My question is to you, why are we going in that direction, and why are you going in that direction, as opposed to, if you look at Western medicine to healing, it's like, oh, I got a problem, I must take something external to fix the problem without looking at the root cause, per se.
Yeah.
But how do you tie in the brain and the autonomic nervous system for people to relate that to healing with the brainwave entrainment?
That's a good question.
Talking about.
So, the work that I've done has evolved over the decades, and it looks very different than when I began. And what made it really different was 25 years ago, I gained access to a heart rate variability device. So in reality, I mean, I teach this stuff in a college course. So I'm in this college, and I have my office there. And one day, some guy knocks on the door. Some guy, I've never seen this guy before, an older man. At that time, I was getting a lot of press because I was doing, crazy, weird stuff and getting a lot of television and radio. And so this guy says, "Well, yeah, I've been reading about you, and I think you might be the guy who can use this machine I've got kicking around in my garage. I just want to give it to somebody who might be able to use it." I said, "Well, what is it?" Heart rate variability. I'm going, "What's that?" Well, it hooks up some sensors on your body, and it measures your heart information, the electrical information from your heart. It does different math. And what pops out the end is these screens that show your autonomic nervous system. I'm going, really? The autonomic nervous system? Like the master control system in the center of the brain that tells all systems what to do? Like the master biocomputer program that somehow synchronizes all of it, everything under the hood? And he goes, "Yeah, I guess, yeah, you could put it that way." I'm going, "Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, yeah, how much do you want?" I'm not looking to buy it. I mean, to sell it to anybody. I mean, I just want somebody who could use it. And I'm going, "Oh," he hands it to me. The guy turns around, walks away. I never see him again in my whole life. It's like, what just happened? Every once in a while the clouds open up and the big voice comes out and says, "You're supposed to do this now." How much more obvious does it have to be, So anyway, so I start, exploring this device, and you hook up some wrist sensors, and in a couple of minutes on the screens you can see the sympathetic, parasympathetic. But it's a snapshot device. It gathers 190 heartbeats and then stops and crunches numbers and pops up these screens. And what it was showing me was it could nail my current state of health on a graph of 66 possible states of health. That's how accurate it is. It's a gold standard in medicine, in allopathic medicine. It's and why is because by analyzing how the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, which form the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic, by analyzing how they're responding, it can accurately predict if you're going to die and when from disease, and particularly heart attack. And the reason that is heart attack is the big one because it's the biggest killer, and it's got the most, insurance coverage. So modern medicine is hypnotized by the ability to predict heart attack from what happens. So digging into the heart rate variability just a little bit without getting too crazy. What HRV is doing is measuring the space between each heartbeat. So that boom, 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 familiar with is a space between each of those heartbeats. Is measuring the space between them in microseconds. And the international standard is 190 of them to get a good sample set. And it turns out that the more uneven the beats are, the more healthy you are. And I would think, well, wait a second, I think the more perfect, right? But no, the more imperfect, the more variable. That's why it's called heart rate variability. It's measuring the variability between the space between each heartbeat. And the more irregular, the more healthy you are. And the more metronome-like and everything exactly the same becomes this super accurate predictor of death by heart attack.
Wow.
But it also predicts death by any disease process that's in your body. It really is super accurate. Anyway, so I was able to use this to measure before and after of my patients that I was doing my sound work with for healing. And So I could confirm that the sound work I was doing was having an objective, good response. People were getting better by this device, but it wasn't good. It wasn't good enough. What I wanted was I want that device to tell me what sound frequencies to use to get the best response. So I started looking around for a company that made HRV to make me a real-time system that wasn't a snapshot that stopped after 190 heartbeats. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to be able to see the sympathetic, parasympathetic live on the computer screen. So if I expose you to certain very precisely tuned sound waves, I could see your nervous system responding to it. Right. So,
Wow.
and I've got this lab of very sophisticated equipment. I can tune between C and C sharp on a piano by 100 steps with a digital readout. And I can make that 1,000 steps in my computer. So I'm getting very accurate to a few decimal points of a sound wave and seeing that it can change the function of the autonomic nervous system under the hood here by tuning your brain. I mean, it blows my mind.
That's amazing, mate. Yeah.
So now all of a sudden there's a test that I learned in first year clinic when I was going to school. And that was 45 years ago. But this test is a blood pressure cuff test. It's a test for adrenal insufficiency, which means it's really a test of your stress handling system. And so what happens is you take your blood pressure when you lay down. You lay down, you wait for about 5 minutes for everything to cool down. Heart rate, respiration should reach their bottom, called baseline. You take a blood pressure measurement of your blood pressure at baseline, and then you stand up and take your blood pressure. And what happens when you stand up is gravity starts to pull the blood out of your head, right? The blood pressure starts to drop. And the barometric receptors in your carotid arteries are there specifically to monitor the pressure of blood in your brain. It's important because you can't live without blood in your brain, right? So as soon as it begins to drop because of this gravity, these guys have an alarm go off, and that signals the autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system turns on. That's a fight or flight response. That signals your pituitary, which kicks your adrenal glands, which raises your blood pressure just enough to neutralize that gravity. This is normal functional behavior of the autonomic nervous system. So that means that everybody's walking around upright, has got 5 millimeters of mercury, higher blood pressure than normal, or higher blood pressure than when you're laying down, and a little bit of sympathetic on. And if the adrenals were weak, if you were really stressed out for years and years until your adrenals just started to fatigue out, then when you lay down and after a few minutes you stand up, you faint and fall down on the floor because the blood pressure just goes out, the adrenals aren't there to kick in. Or they're sluggish. You stand up, you get woozy, and then it kicks in. That's adrenal insufficiency. Your adrenals are weak. They're not snappy. They can't kick in. And so now that I've got this heart rate variability device that I had made for me, and I have a patent on it, this real-time system, now I can do a reverse Raglan test, where now I don't have to use blood pressure anymore because I'm now monitoring who tells blood pressure what to do downstream. I'm at the headwaters up here at the master control system that tells all systems what to do. So now I'm observing it live, and when you lay down, I should see a little bit of sympathetic tone from the gravity stress, and I should see a collapse down to zero homeostasis, zero stress in the system in 3 minutes. And when I began beta testing this, I'm seeing every single person coming in. I beta tested this for 6 years. That's thousands of patient visits. Nobody has a normal response. No one. And I'm thinking, this can't be right. Statistically, that's impossible. I mean, there must be something wrong with my machine. And no, nothing wrong with this machine. There's something wrong with our world. That's what's wrong. Everybody's got, after 3 minutes, after 5 minutes, after 10 minutes, the sympathetic is just solidly on. It's not moving. And that is a runaway fight or flight response. And this is not a good thing, because when you look at how the body is and the brain is made, the autonomic nervous system is supposed to be always in neutral. We should be in this homeostasis zone of zero stress in the system, where all my energy comes back into my reservoir, and my body uses that energy to work on a never-ending maintenance list and repair list that's constantly going on. There's this magic act going on under the hood here that we're just not aware of. I mean, think of what happens when you cut yourself, right? The blood kind of stops by itself, and the thing kind of closes up, and the scab forms, and the scab drops off, and you got a little line. What the heck just happened there? What is going on in this system that makes that happen, all on automatic, under the hood, without me knowing what the hell's going on? I mean, it's like amazing to me. And that is going on all the time, on a million levels, every minute of the day. Just think of all the things that have to go on in here. It's healing tissues. I mean, every time I move my arm at a microscopic level, cells are being destroyed by friction at the joint surface, but new ones are being born to replace them at the same rate. So you don't need pain, and you don't need inflammation. So for pain, we've got endorphin neurons in the brainstem that tops my body up with endorphins so I don't feel that pain. And my adrenal glands produce corticosteroid hormones that flood my system all the time to suppress unneeded inflammation responses. So what happens if we're running this fight or flight response all the time? One thing that's going to happen is my adrenals are running all the time, right? They're running all the time. Now, what happens when the adrenals are running as part of the fight or flight response? Adrenaline kicks up my blood pressure. So I've got higher blood pressure than normal. Adrenaline suppresses the pancreas, so it liberates extra glucose to be super strong to fight for my life. So now I've got, by default, high blood pressure, high blood sugar. Those are the two biggest prescriptions in the Western world. High blood pressure, pre-diabetic pills. That's it. And you know what? I say that over half are complete misdiagnosis. It's got nothing to do with your heart. It's got nothing to do with your pancreas. You don't have diabetes. You never did. What you've got is hyperadrenals driving those up in the normal process of the fight or flight response that is abnormally stuck in an on position that's rolling all the time. And so I'm seeing a patient who come in who, I mean, I'm the witch doctor at the end of the trail. People have been everywhere, and they're finally coming to me. And really, so I see the gnarliest, craziest conditions you can imagine. And everybody's got this fight or flight response going all the time. And the more I think about it, the more I'm bringing back my knowledge of anatomy and physiology, normal functional physiology, how the system is designed to work. I'm sort of grokking out what would be the ramifications of running a fight or flight response all the time, and never pushing in the clutch, never going back to homeostasis so that the energy comes to my reservoir so I can start working on my maintenance list, right? And the more I think about it, the more I realize that without the maintenance list, when that's abandoned, I'm just burning up all my resources. There is no repair going on. That means normal joint motion, those cells are not being reborn and rebuilt at the same rate. It's abandoned. And the adrenals are wearing out, and adrenaline is going down, and corticosteroids are going down. And what's going to happen? Everything's going to start to hurt. Everything's going to start to get inflamed, because now there's nothing to suppress the inflammations throughout my whole system. And now it all depends, and I'm going to get fatigued all the time. So chronic fatigue syndrome, that's the cause. Fibromyalgia, that's the cause. It's a throwaway term. All the tests come back negative. Everything's getting inflamed. So it just turns out where's your weak link in your genetic chain? If your weak link is your mucous membranes, then you have allergies. If your weak link is collagen tissue, connective tissue, then it's in your joints and you've got arthritis. I know that guy, arthritis, and his brother, Hare Krishna. It's a throwaway thing. It's crazy. But anyway, so.
So, question for you then, Jeffrey, because what you say, like, I listen to every word, and it's mind blowing, and especially that the fact that you had 6 years and thousands of people all coming in the stress response,
and that was 30 years ago.
Oh my God! Imagine it now.
I've been seeing full-time patients ever since then. So it's tens of thousands of visits.
Would it be fair to say then that no matter the diet, the lifestyle, or the things that we're doing, if we don't address the underlying autonomic nervous system and the relationship to our actual getting our homeostasis back in check, we're pushing shit uphill, because that's the fundamental underlying root, like you say, that the maintenance isn't happening.
It's why, as time has gone on, I've become more and more convinced that stress is the ultimate cause of disease. It's not stress. It's my ability to handle stress. My stress handling system, if it's impaired, is ultimate cause of disease. But the deeper you think about this, the more it becomes. And I can give some examples of that to flesh it out. But first of all, it's not just the adrenals. So let's think that we know what the cascade looks like with a fight or flight response. Sympathetic turns on. So sympathetic governs pulling energy out of that reservoir into my muscles to fight for my life. Parasympathetic dominance is pulling the energy out of the reservoir into my gut to digest my food and eliminate toxins. When those activities are not happening, when I'm not eating or digesting my food and I'm not running for my life, then it's homeostasis, energy in the reservoir working on my list. So pretty simple concept. When I get locked into the fight or flight response all the time, then other things happen, right? My body is going to pull all available energy from everywhere it can get to obey rule number one: survive at all costs. Do whatever is necessary to survive. Because if you don't, then you die like an idiot and the whole thing is for nothing, right? So do all your energy to survive. And that means I'm going to pull all available energy out of my gut, out of my elimination system, out of my immune system, out of my higher brain centers. My brain goes on instinctive mode, and put it in my muscles to fight for my life. My adrenals are raising my blood pressure, so I've got more oxygen running past everything. And it's suppressing the pancreas, so I've got extra glucose, so now I'm super strong. The mother lifting the car off the little baby, And now that's my life. That's who I am. That's where I am, running that all the time. Not rebuilding anything. Tissues are breaking down all over my body until eventually somebody's going to drop off the edge and become a true, pathologic condition. Up to this point, what the body does best is rob Peter to pay Paul. So this system starts to get weak, and the body recruits this system to help this guy to heal. But the healing program is disengaged because this is requirement for healing to take place. Homeostasis, 0.
Yeah.
That's disengaged. So this day never arrives. So this guy is like locked into doing his job plus this guy's job. He's getting weak. This guy gets recruited to help him. This guy gets recruited to help him. That's how the body works, right? It jury rigs the situation to get through anyhow, to survive, whatever you have to do. So now I'm at a deficit. And all of those balls that are juggling have symptoms that pop up. And when I go to the medical doctor with all these symptoms, and the doctor does lab tests and x-rays or CAT scans or whatever it is, and they all come back negative, you have to understand that all of those tests are looking for pathology. They're all based on looking for pathology. Even your blood test is looking for pathology. Unless your blood test comes back with, an H for high or an L for low, then you're fine. No, that's not how it works. The body has symptoms when it's out of balance functionally to alert me to do something about the underlying cause before it goes far enough into the future where pathology actually does arrive. So when I go to the medical doctor and he's doing tests that only look for pathology, underlying that philosophical idea is either you're 100% well or you're pathologic. That's not how it works. It doesn't work that way. We go for years, decades of Robert and Peter to pay Paul and jury rigging the situation with baling wire and duct tape in order to make it work anyhow. So nobody goes abnormal. That's the reason that body's doing it that way. And so what are they going to do? They're going to give you some kind of pill to silence the symptom that you're suffering from. And what about what's going on underneath? What about the cause of that symptom? Nobody's doing anything about that. So what's going to happen? It's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. More symptoms, more pills, until it does drop off the edge. And now you show up on my pathology test and, oh, now I can see it. But by that time, you're an expensive, true medical case. Now you're being dragged into the system, and now you don't want to be there. You don't want to end up in a hospital, operations,
It's
and all the
mind-blowing, mate. Yeah.
You don't want to go there. So what it really means is that we have generations of a population of people that are the sickest that we've ever seen in human history. It's like the kinds of diseases are weird, and the pervasiveness of all the different conditions that we've got, in my opinion, is mostly two things. One of them is iatrogenic illness caused by your doctor. In this case, caused by the medical system's negligence in not managing your condition properly. What do you expect is going to happen if I just silence the symptoms? I mean, it's kind of like I'm sitting on my couch and I'm watching my favorite movie and the smoke alarm goes off, and now I'm disturbed. So they prescribe earmuffs.
Take the battery out.
And then an operation to remove the
Yeah.
batteries from the smoke alarm. There's the operation. And now the fire is working its way to your living room and it's burning up your couch, and your arm is getting second-degree burns, and so they prescribe cortisone cream and painkillers. It's like insane. It doesn't make logical sense for anybody who's got a brain to think. I mean, so, and here's the thing that gets me is I took the same courses that they did. Anatomy and physiology and biochemistry, it's all there. I mean, we know that silencing symptoms is leaving the underlying condition unresolved. It's not going to get better. It's getting worse. More symptoms, more pills. And we're not even talking about the side effects of the pills. I mean,
Yeah.
So don't get me started down that road. That's another road we don't want to go on. So what I'm talking about is from a holistic standpoint, really what we've got. We have a war of ideas between of what is health and what is disease and what do you do about it. That's the war. And we've got two camps in that war. The allopathic view, which is silence the symptoms, and the holistic view, which is dig deep and find what the cause is. Now, those systems need to work together, and when they don't, it's us who suffers. Modern medicine has got incredible technologies for saving your life in a heroic manner in ICU or in the emergency room. But when you use the technologies of pathology for functional conditions that are not pathologic, you create pathology. You're using the wrong tools. You're using a sledgehammer when you need a feather. So back to, in my case, how I'm myself using sound as a tool in a holistic model. For me, the body is strategic, not tactical. And what I mean by that is the autonomic nervous system that gets feedback from every part of the body in all different systems, sending information up into the autonomic nervous system, and is monitoring the dance and how everybody's synchronized up together. And it's sending signals back out when things are drifting to bring them back. Constant thing going on here. And that means that if I have a problem with my liver, it starts to get congested, I start to get some symptoms, then it's not the liver's fault. It's the autonomic nervous system's fault for not managing it in relation to all the other glands and systems in the body. It's supposed to be managing it. It's supposed to be synchronizing it. It's supposed to be balancing it. Everybody's supposed to be dancing in harmonious rhythms with each other. And when they're not, something is blocking the system from being able to do its natural expressive job of holding it all together. These quote diseases, the liver disease you've got didn't arrive from Venus and land on your body and invade. It came from inside you, right? It came from some balance inside you. And why would that balance unbalance itself? What's the cause? All roads lead back to the master system that's supposed to be telling it what to do. For instance, let's just say that I'm running a fight or flight response for 30 years. I see this all the time. Patients come in, they've got all these symptoms. It looks like a nightmare. I know that most of those symptoms are the balls juggling. They're all compensations for this one problem that began it all. Mm-hmm. And if I could solve this problem, all of those compensations would disappear. The body goes, oh, I don't need those anymore. Bang, they all go back to normal. All those symptoms disappear. So there's this smoke screen of symptoms that aren't real. I mean, they're real, you feel them, they're actual. But from the standpoint of cause and effect, they're not the cause. They're the result of somebody getting weak, and this guy got recruited, and these guys got recruited, and each one has a symptom. So when you come into me with a dozen symptoms, I can suspect that 11 of them are probably ersatz, and they'll go away quickly if I can nail the problem, right? And then I'm thinking, how am I going to disentangle this unmanageable mess? And the answer is, you don't have to. Nobody's smart enough to do that up here. The only place that's smart enough is the quantum computer under the hood, big mind. The part of me that knows how to grow my body out of 2 cells and differentiate the tissues and make them all work on automatic without me knowing what the hell's going on. My true biological identity, the life force, the internal physician program, that's me. That's my real me. That's my true cosmic identity, biologically. And up here, my personality, who I think I am, is not me. It's me like my finger is me. It's me like my hand is me. It's a tool that Big Mind grew in order to do something, to have a conversation with you, to get a job, to fill out a tax form, or to go to DMV. I mean, I don't know, all that stuff. The stuff that I have to do to go shopping and make food. And I use it, I muscle this up all the time because I use it all the time, then I think it's me. Yet, if I have a true transformational experience, a spiritual revelation, or I meditate until something wakes up, or I take LSD or I take mushrooms or something, and I have this like a God realization experience. What happens in those experiences, we all know what that looks like. We know what that looks like on EEG. What happens is my ordinary personality, who I identify myself as being, dissolves. It vaporizes. And I come in contact with something deep inside, something powerful and ancient and filled with wisdom and knowledge a part of me that knows I belong here, knows that I'm grown out of the universe, out of the earth. I'm not a visitor. I belong, like a leaf, like a cloud, like a star. There's some level of grok. I don't know if you know that word. It was, I get it. There's something that's so deep before a thought, in the present moment, before time, that gets it and experiences it directly, that I'm connected to everything intimately. And all answers are laid bare. It's a marvel that there could ever be, that anything could be a mystery, because everything is so obviously laid out in front of us under our noses if we would just look. The sacred geometries in the math of nature follow exactly music theory. The law of octaves and harmonics and overtones. The periodic table, the structure of atoms follow the harmonic series we use in music. They even predicted a couple of atoms' structure just by carrying the harmonic math forward. And
Incredible.
Even in high school, 50 years ago, we already know that my body is made of cells, and my cells are made of compounds, and my compounds are made of atoms, and atoms are made of protons, electrons, and neutrons. And those, you split them apart, they're made of quarks and charms and hadrons and leptons, and you keep going, you keep going. Pretty soon you crack the smallest piece open, and there's nothing inside there except energy, pattern, relationships in a state of vibration, forming standing waves in a substance that can't be measured. And the Vedas, 4,000-year-old texts from India, talk about the same thing. It's like, it's consciousness at the root of the quantum field. That is coalescing energy into standing waves, and when you back up from them, those standing waves nest together in harmonic sequences where they fold up together really nicely and fit together really nicely. That's what a chord is in music. Until you're backed up far enough away that all of those standing waves nested together look like a person. Looks like a tree, looks like you, looks like me, but it's all vibration, and it's mostly space. It's not solid at all. It's an illusion. So energy work, electromagnetic fields can affect this, light can affect it, sound waves can affect it, through sympathetic resonance, the law of coupled oscillators, there's the physics law behind sympathetic resonance. And we can use that to find the frequency for your fifth lumbar disc, or your liver, or your autonomic nervous system.
I was going to ask.
And so that's what I'm doing. So if we teleport you back to, you're the guy who just laid down on the table, and I've hooked you up to my HRV, and within 3 minutes, the sympathetic should collapse down to zero. That's normal, and it's not. It's not doing that. And so now my innovation is, I know there's a sound frequency that will make it happen, that will make this push in the clutch. I don't know what sound frequency is going to work, so I've created a sound sweep program that sweeps every sound through your body. I've got a sound table, and you're laying on the sound table with big speakers, and the sound is coming through your cells. And the sound is sweeping from 50 hertz to 200 hertz. So it's going, oh, like that. And I'm watching the HRV screen, where I'm seeing the sympathetic is stuck on. And as the sound is moving, changing tuning, it's getting into the zone that works for you. Like the frequency that makes the wine glass vibrate, except the wine glass is in your brain. So as it gets closer and closer to that frequency, we can see your nervous system is starting to respond. It's starting to do this thing. It's starting to come down. As the frequencies move forward, it's coming down and down closer until it finally hits this spot. And now I've captured a frequency that makes this happen. A frequency that resets your autonomic nervous system with a sound wave that's accurate to a couple of decimal points. So it may be, 124.025 hertz, which is A sharp plus 23 on a digital keyboard. because I can tune between C and C sharp on this keyboard by 100 steps with a digital readout. And all that A sharp plus 23 means is the note A sharp plus 23 divisions out of 100 sharp towards the next note. It's just a notation way of writing something down in your record so you can reference it again. And now we're into the law of physics that govern sound. So when I take the wine glass and I ping that wine glass and I listen to that note and I sing that note, the wine glass will vibrate. Sympathetic resonance with its own fundamental resonant frequency. So there's the glass, the wine glass in that particular shape, density, and mass has a certain frequency. I can tell what it is by pinging it. By the way, if I couldn't ping it, then I could sweep my voice and watch it vibrate. That's what I'm doing. Except I'm a scientist, so I'd hook it up to a sensor and watch a computer screen when it hits its maximum vibration frequency. And then that would tell me what frequency to use. That's essentially what I'm doing with your autonomic nervous system. Yeah. So now I've got this frequency. And just like the wine glass, if I ping the wine glass and sing that note, any octave of that note will make the wine glass also vibrate. It's called octave resonance. And an octave is 1/2 the frequency or double, right? So middle A on a piano is 440 hertz. But A, 1 octave lower, that key, is still A, but it's 220 hertz. An octave lower than that is 110, 55, 440, 880. That's an octave. And theoretically to infinity in both directions. So also any harmonic will make the wine glass vibrate. Any harmonic that would be in a chord, because those are intimately related to each other mathematically. So with the octaves, I'm using that. In your body, it's different. So now I've got you on this sound table, and we have a second system that we have to think about. We're talking about hearing here. Eardrum and the cochlea and all that stuff, and the temporal lobes of the brain for hearing processing. But there's the second system, and that's the largest sensory organ in your body, which is your skin. About 70 pounds of you is your skin. And it's filled with billions and billions, hundreds of billions of sensors of all kinds, pain and pressure and, So the vibration sense is in the skin, and it's 4 different skin sensors that have fancy schmancy names, and each one of those is sensitive to a different bandwidth of frequencies. And when you add them all up, all 4, the total frequency bandwidth that they're all sensitive to is 0.3 to 500 hertz. That's what your body considers to be vibration sense. Anything within 0.3 to 500 hertz, that's what you feel. So even if you're deaf, right, you can feel up to 500 hertz of the music or whatever. So Beethoven, when deaf, one of the most famous composers of all time, what a concept. You're the greatest composer on earth and you go deaf. I mean, good God, And he composed 3 symphonies after he was deaf. And he heard those symphonies by putting his head on the grand piano and listening through bone conduction with his vibration sense network. Those 4 skin sensors, the wires, the nerves from those 4 skin sensors go into your spinal cord, at the back part of the spinal cord, the posterior part of the spinal cord, and up into the brainstem where there's special neurons that process vibration sense, cross over up into the cortex. So the sound table that I had to make is activating the vibration sense network. And nobody out there was making a sound table that had enough power or was configured correctly to do the job I was trying to do. Because I've got headphones on and I've got this second thing, this brain entrainment thing, which I haven't really fleshed out yet, but that requires headphones because there's different signals in either side. And the different sound frequencies tuning in either side forces the hemispheres of the brain to synchronize across the corpus callosum in a process called binaural beats. So most people have kind of heard of binaural beats, but really what's happening is the original research done by that was later carried on by the Navy with light pulses, proving that EEG, that your brainwaves would lock onto a light pulse, pulsing at a brainwave speed. There was an article in the October issue of Scientific American in 1973 by a guy named Gerald Oster, who did the first experiments with scientific instruments to hook up EEG and expose you to a sound pulsing at a brain speed, and proved that entrainment worked and that the frequency following response worked too if you change the speed. Then it was like by pounding a drum. Then it was like, I wonder if the brain would entrain to a phantom pulse that wasn't an actual pulse, like pounding a drum. And to make a phantom pulse, he did this binaural beat thing, and he used sine waves, which are man-made tones with no harmonics. They're generated by an electronic oscillator. So now we've got two speakers, and one speaker's got 100 hertz, and one's got 105, slightly out of tune. They're not a harmonious relationship, but they're slightly out of tune. And, sound is a pure energy wave moving through a medium. Sound is the only thing in the whole universe that's not on the electromagnetic spectrum, by the way. Right? In high school, you learned the electromagnetic spectrum, where you've got television and radio and X-ray and microwaves and color frequencies, and then cosmic rays and all the rest, vibrational frequencies, all based on photons, the electromagnetic effect. But that's not everything. There's only one thing that's different. That's sound waves. It's not electromagnetic. It's pure energy moving through a medium. From the speakers, it's air molecules are bumping into each other. The sound wave pressure wave is pushing air molecules. And this is 100 air molecules per second in a column of compression sound wave, meeting 105. So they're slightly out of tune, and they're bumping into each other 5 times a second because they're slightly out of phase. And you hear that as a wah-wah. And that wah-wah that you're hearing is not coming out of either speaker. It's coming by collision of air molecules. It's this Mr. Wizard trick that happens. If I shut one of these two speakers off, the wah-wah disappears. I just hear one tone. But if I bring the other speaker back up, I'll start to hear this wah-wah appearing as a interference between the air molecules of the two. So that's what he wanted to know. This sort of fake pulse. Also, if it's set at a brainwave speed, your brainwaves will time to that. So the answer was yes. Wherever this pulse arises from, if it's at a brain speed, the brainwaves will try to time themselves to it. So then the significant thing that happened out of this research is what happens with headphones. What happens if you don't have speakers, but you've got two headphones, and you've got 100 hertz here and 105 here, and you hear this 5 cycle a second pulse right here in the middle of your head, because that's how the brain processes 3D. If the sound is hitting both ears exactly at the same time, the sound must be somewhere in the midline. So the brain will place that wah-wah you're hearing right here. And then your brainwaves will entrain to it. And so that's confirmed now, that we don't even have air molecules anymore. Where the heck is this sound coming from? Where is this pulse coming from I'm hearing? If there's no air molecules colliding together, what's happening? Where's it coming from? And the answer is a true quirk of neurofunction, of brain function. And there's a series of things that go on with that, but one is survival. The body is always trying to obey rule number 1, survive at all costs. So all information coming in from my senses is always being evaluated in terms of, is this a threat to me? That's why I've got 5 senses stuck into the world, to see if I'm being threatened. That's why they're there. When all of my survival needs are met and I feel safe and the clutch pushes in at the autonomic level, Zero stress in the system. That means this is my safe place. I feel safe now. As soon as I feel safe, civilization can flower. Appreciation of art and beauty and music flow from that. But I remember one time I took a trip out to the big island of Hawaii, and I drove 10 miles out a dirt road to the end of the mountain to a Hawaiian wilderness zone. Halina Pali. It's not there anymore. The volcanoes went off and eradicated it. And you could stand on the edge of this mountain and look down and watch the flow of the land out to the sea. And I started hiking out there. I hiked for hours and hours and found a beautiful spot through the woods where there was a big field. So I went through the little woody patch, got to that field and spent the day there. And it was a vision of perfection and beauty. I mean, it was ecstatic, beautiful. And then when I go home and I cross over those woods to get to the other side, I get lost. And the beauty of nature I was experiencing was instantaneously eradicated. The instant I felt my life was in danger, all that's over. It's all gone. Panic replaces it. Freaking out, running around, eventually falling down, tripping over things, until you're exhausted. And then it's just you and what most likely will be your death. Because you're in a wilderness zone. It'll take months, if ever, to find your body. And so it's you and God. You start praying, whether you're religious or not, you know. If this is my time, then make it quick. But then I started walking again, and I swear 15 feet I'm out. And there I am. I'm standing in the field. But I don't know which field I'm in. I'm turned around. I don't know if this is the field I came from or not. I don't know where I am. I look up the hill, and up on the top up there, I see my mother and my father and my sister, who dropped me off that morning. My mom's got her red parka, my dad's got his yellow one, and my sister's there, and they're waving at me. And because I can see where they are, I can see just the beginning of where the path is, so I've got my orientation back, and I find my way back. And I get up to the top, and of course there's no one there. And they were never there. And I had my first mystical experiences. But what I learned from that lesson was my mind is now open to mystical experiences, and I realized that whatever I think this is all about, I'm probably wrong. But at least now I've got an open mind, and I'm not going to poo-poo anything anymore because I had direct experiences myself. That wasn't the only one. But the other thing I learned that was really important is that pursuit of higher levels of consciousness and pursuit of beauty and pursuit of music and art and the flowering of the best things that civilization can bring is only possible when my survival needs are met and I'm in this place. If my survival needs are not met and I'm running something else, a fight or flight response in particular, then depression comes quickly because there's no more beauty anywhere. I can never reach the place where I can receive solace from beauty or music, or I can never quite get there. I can pretend it's ersatz, it's not real. But so when I see all these patients after all these years with all these symptoms, and every single one of them has the same underlying condition, runaway fight or flight response, which basically separates people into two massive groups. Group A has the genetic makeup that they can run their adrenal glands and run a fight or flight response for 30 years and not be dead. It's a testament to the profound resilience of the body that it could do that and not rebuild any tissues and just run aground for 30 years and have a dozen symptoms that are major symptoms, but they're not pathologic yet even. and the other group that can't do that, who can't run their adrenals for 30 years nonstop. Their adrenal function collapses. So those people, when they lay down, there's no sympathetic on. It's parasympathetic that's on. And normally parasympathetic is the relaxation response. So when I see somebody laying there with the parasympathetic thing going, oh, now they're not good in relaxation, good and relaxed, this is good. But no, not here. This is the absence of a stress handling system. Your back is against the wall. You've got no armor, you've got no sword, you've got no ability to survive. Anything that comes along could be your demise. The system is freaking out. You've got no bank account, no IRA, you've got nothing. And that's PTSD, clinical depression, anxiety attacks. That's that set of symptoms.
Yeah.
But the other ones are any kind of thing you can imagine. So let's take, so let me just say one more thing. So when the fight or flight is running all the time, one of the things that's, and the digestion is, impaired, and elimination is impaired, and the immune system is impaired. Now it all depends on what your genetic weaknesses are. So if my genetic weakness is my gut, then that's who's going to fall first. That's where the symptoms are going to attack first. If it's my immune system, then that's what's going to attack first. And so if the immune system has been offline for 20 years, it's starting to forget what it was supposed to be doing. What was my job again? I'm kind of forgetting here. What was my job? And pretty soon it starts attacking me. Autoimmune diseases start to arise. It's faltering. It's not understanding what's happening. And who is it going to attack in my body? Again, it's going to be my genetic weakness. Whoever's the weakest fence line in my genetics is going to fall first. That's who's going to get attacked. So this person is their thyroid. So I get my thyroid attacked by immune system. That's the medical name for that is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, a big fancy schmancy word that has a billing code. But this person over here is their gut. So they've got Crohn's disease, autoimmune attacking their gut. And there's a whole protocol for these two different conditions. And excuse me, they're not two different conditions at all. The problem is not your thyroid and the problem is not your gut. The problem is the immune system is attacking you inappropriately. That's the problem. And excuse me, that's not the problem either. The immune system is only offline because the sympathetic nervous system is running all the time. You're locked into a fight or flight response, and it's been pulled, its energy has been pulled, and it's not engaged. So once again, all roads are leading back to the autonomic nervous system. So that's kind of my practice in a nutshell. That's what I do. People come in, with gnarliest position you've ever seen, and the neurological conditions now flesh out a clinical use of binaural beats, because binaural beats right now in the industry are geared towards relaxation and meditation. So they're general kind of relaxation, perhaps to a certain brain state, alpha, theta, delta, and that's where I began. I did 2 years of clinical work with a neurofeedback practitioner who was a previous student of mine at this college I taught at. That gave me 2 years of access to the most sophisticated EEG machines of the time, QEEG brain mapping computers where you can see the topographical map of where things are located. And we were doing major medical conditions, epilepsy and autism and AD and ADHD and alcoholism and depression. And so I could see the pattern of non-communication of pathways. And I began doing serious clinical work with binaural beats, because with this, instead of trying to make a plane fly on a computer screen with your brainwaves, where they've set the plane can only fly with the kind of brainwaves you can't do, right? I'm an ADD kid. My brainwaves are stuck in theta, daydream zone. And I'm given tasks that require beta function. external focused attention. I can't do it because my brain won't leave theta. It won't go up there. It won't speed up into beta where I get external focus. It won't do it. And so the EEG is showing that. And now they make this, brain game where I'm hooked up to the EEG and I'm going to make this plane fly with my brain waves. But the plane is set to only fly with beta. Excuse me, that's what I can't do. That's exactly what I can't do. And nobody can tell me what to do. So this is 15 sessions of unbelievable frustration, mostly with kids who don't want to be there, at $350 each. And I'm thinking maybe I could help this with entrainment. Maybe what we could do is use the frequency following response. Let's see this kid on the EEG with the brain stuck at 5 hertz theta. And I'm going to start my binaural beats at 5 hertz. So now we have instantaneous brainwave entrainment because I'm entraining you to what you're already doing. And then all I have to do is untune these a little bit and speed up the pulse. So now the pulse is going to go to 5.1, and I'm going to watch your brainwaves on the EEG go to 5.1 because that's the frequency following response. Once I lock you on, if I speed it up or slow down, your brainwaves follow, right? So I'm going to make it 5.1 and watch your brain follow. 5.2, watch your brain follow. 5.3, watch your brain follow. 5.4, 5.5, and then your brain starts to disengage. You can only stretch that far. But we just got you from 5.0 to 5.5 in one session. And now we're going to set the plane to fly at 5.5, something you can achieve. You have to stretch, but it's achievable. And like I said before, nobody can tell you what to do. I just told you what to do. You just got what to do on the inside, not through here, but through an experience of what it feels like to move from 5.1 to 5.2 to 3 to 4 to 5. You just felt that inside your brain. Your brain just felt that. So I just communicated straight through the linear thinking mind that doesn't have a clue into the deep mind that's controlling the system and showed it what it feels like to do that. And so these kids now look at the plane and they do what they felt happen and it flies. And as soon as that happens, there's not a kid that went on that program who wasn't jumping up and down and excited and whooping and hollering and can hardly wait to come back for the next appointment, right? And the next appointment, we start at 5.5 and 5.6 and 5.7 until they disengage. And now we've set the plane to fly at the highest we could bring you. And now we could achieve what took 15 to 20 sessions in 5 sessions with no strain and no pain. And the kid excited. It's
amazing.
It's totally different. It's working with how the system works. It's working with how your body works. And so, God does the healing and the doctor collects the bill, right? So it means that if you were somebody who came to me as a patient with all these symptoms and you're in a state of fear and depression because nobody seems to have an answer, you've been to a whole bunch of people. Fancy schmancy guys with a lot of diplomas on their walls and white lab coats in big hospitals. And they're going, well, let's try this pill. Oh, that didn't work? Well, let's try this one. And you're going, whoa, wait a second. I thought you knew what you were doing. I mean, it seems to me like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall. That if this doesn't work, let's try that one. What kind of a statement is that? That's not who I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who's got a handle on how my body works and can maybe do a Sherlock Holmes thing and figure out what's going on. But so you come to me and I'm going to hook you up and see what's what. And you now have, when you see that screen, I replay what happened. And I can show you that we were able to make this happen. And I can show you during a session that this was holding and doing well. We just broke a vicious cycle that's been going on for years. as soon as this takes place, something big has just happened.
Yeah.
And you have a new contact with a part of yourself that you didn't before. Because what's going on under the hood? I mean, I remember when I was going to school, I'm sitting in class, I'm learning anatomy and physiology and the wiring diagram of the brain, all this unbelievable complex stuff. And it hit me all of a sudden, wait a second, why do I have to spend all these years and all this heartache and all this money to learn what I myself grew in the first place? I grew this. I'm making it function. And I don't have a clue. Why is that? How is it possible that I could grow this whole thing and make it all work and not have a clue? Because the body doesn't make mistakes. The body separated this out on purpose. The monkey mind should not be playing around with the big machine. So it's disconnected.
Yeah, of course. Jeffrey, I got to jump in, mate. I got a hard stop in a moment with everything.
Okay.
With the time in I feel like I could have 10 podcasts with you, mate. Like it's unbelievable what you're sharing, and I really feel we've captured the essence of the essence of your work today, which excites me, you know. And the one thing I want to ask just before we wrap it up, mate, is if people want to find out more, if they want to have an experience, can this be done remotely? Can you work with people? Do you have where can people go for the next step?
I can work. So the shortfall of what I'm doing is I have to hook you up.
Right.
I have to hook you up to this monitor, and so far, doing that long distance is not possible. I'd have to send you some kind of interface that you could hook yourself up with your computer through the internet. That seemed to be an easy idea, but the internet has lag, and I'm doing the sound sweep, and a single sync tuning makes a difference, and so that's not going to work. So it means that I have to perhaps do it through an app, and that's what we're developing now. An app with the interface that would plug into your phone and hook you up, and the phone would do the sweep and the recording locally and not through the internet, and then send that to the internet to us, and then we'd be good to go. But as it is now, that's not, we don't have that yet. So you either have to come to me, or we start out with generic soundtracks that I have on my website, which I've got 90 soundtracks in all kinds of categories, and that's a good place to begin. Is that way.
Perfect. Well, I'll ensure everyone.
I'm working on Turnstile where I can be any place instantly, so I could just walk into your living room, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's been a fascinating conversation today, Jeffrey. I really appreciate your wisdom and everything you've shared on the show, and I have no doubt people will listen to that several times and get something different out of it. I'll ensure your website is linked in the show notes below as well, if people want to jump across and check you out.
I also have I do a live stream every Sunday, so chock full of information, and I give a free soundtrack away every week to listen to.
Amazing. All on YouTube, right?
That's on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and type in Dr. Jeffrey Thompson, you'll find me.
Perfect. I'll link to that as well. I'll link to your YouTube channel as well. I've been checking it out. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
Amazing.
Thanks for your show. I mean, I really like what you're doing. So all of us out there doing our part, right?
100%.
No more pussyfooting away. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you.